Hello, everybody, and welcome back into the Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, again, joined in by my co-host, Peter Baracchini. Missing our third line mate, out with a little bit of an injury, but he'll be back. He'll be back pretty soon, so feel better, Devin. But we're going to soldier on here. We're into the off season now, so dog days are upon us. But there is the World Juniors coming up in August, so we will have some stuff, new stuff to talk about. But Peter, we're going to talk about the 2023 draft, though. We're going to do an early look. And it's never too early to talk about this class that's been, oh my gosh, it's been talked about probably for 2-3 seasons already, looking ahead to this one. So we're on the 2022 one. Of course, Shane Wright going fourth overall rather than first overall. But let's look ahead to this one, which is definitely has a pretty clear-cut number one pick. I don't think he's going down to fourth overall. Is Connor Bedard. We'll talk about him, of course, but we're going to look at our projected top five and talk about some players we're kind of looking out for coming to this 2023 draft, which is about a year out. Probably less than a year, because it's probably going to be back to our normal draft time around the 20-ish of June. So we're actually less than a year away from it. So that's pretty exciting, actually. So Peter, let's start with you on what your top five looks like. And I'm sure we know who the number one guy is, but give us your top five.
Yeah, way too early look. Obviously, Connor Bedard is number one for all the reasons why Connor Bedard should be number one. The IQ, the awareness. I mean, everyone's going to, if you're going to use his size against him, just exit the conversation right now, because everything he has is elite. The vision, IQ, shot, passing, speed, you name it. Like, he makes moves at such a quick pace. His hands are off the charts. The way that he sees the ice, the way that he spots his teammates, it's already NHL level. Everything he possesses is already NHL level, and there's no question about that. He's number one for me. Number two, and this might come not necessarily a shock, but by a slim margin, I still have Mete Michkov second overall, because, again, top Russian goal scorer, kind of similar to like Alex Ovechkin, kind of in that mold, shoot first mentality, always on the go, driving to the net, powerful release. We saw him score some amazing goals throughout his U16 career. Even at the World Juniors, it was already on display at that point. So the only, X factor negative aspect is that contract that he signed. That's going to keep him 2-3 years out from making the jump to the NHL. And is there going to be a team that's going to take him second, third, fourth? If there's anyone that's going to probably drop, it might be him. Maybe a mistake, but if they're willing to wait that 2-3 years, that's definitely going to be a reason why. And that's why he just has that slim margin ahead of number three, Adam Fantilli. Again, similar to Bedard, elite hands, elite shots, great IQ, great awareness. His competitive edge is off the charts. He has an insane work ethic, and we saw that at the U18s. Dalibor Dvorsky, fourth overall. We saw how well the Slovaks did this season with Slavkovsky and Nemec, going 1-2 in the NHL draft. Excellent playmaker, great speed, really quick skating stride, excellent edges. And fifth overall, it was kind of a toss-up, but I'm going with Brayden Yager at the moment. 34 goals, 59 points. Great size, great edges, fantastic shots. He fills out my top five, but then again, that's where things are going to get a little bit more interesting. But Brayden Yager, top five. I was thinking of Zach Benson. Sorry, that was my mistake. But Brayden Yager, Musha Warriors, that is correct. 34 goals, 59 points. I'm curious. I'm excited to see what he's going to do in not necessarily most likely his third season, because he did play 24 in that shortened season. So let's see what he's able to do, because I'm really high on him.
Yeah, I mean, that's a super top five, and that's just a scratch. That's just a little bit of what this
a little teaser,
in talent. I mean, Going through the first round, you just look at the names that are part of this. You didn't even mention a couple guys that I really like.
Yeah.
And that top five, like I'll go through the ones that are a little bit different for me. Like Connor Bedard's number one for me. He's been number one for, like I say, for a few seasons now, and he hasn't done anything to really say that he's not first overall. And this isn't a Shane Wright type thing. I mean, I hate saying there's light years ahead of Shane Wright, but I would say he probably is. Like, he's a generational talent. Like, you want to say generational guy, this guy is it.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about teams that could potentially be in the running for him later. But if you're in a point where you could be a lottery team, I would say you should probably look at not doing too well this coming season.
Yeah. Some teams are already got a head start on that.
Yeah, right. So Connor Bedard's number one for me. I'm going to say Adam Fantilli is second overall. Just what he's done with the Chicago Steel, not just this season, but the season before that. He was already dominating. And the thing is, this guy is just, he could potentially be, I would say would be probably in the running for first overall this year if he was in this draft. So there's so many guys that could potentially be there. And I
was just about to say, I talked to Luca Del Belbaluz, who played with Fantilli in the GTHL, and he said he's an absolute gamer. His work ethic is off the charts.
Yeah, well, see, there's a guy that I'm going to love then. Work ethic is just, if you have a high work ethic, there's weaknesses that I'll look over if you have that. So he's already a favorite of mine. Michkov, of course, he's just barely third. He's really in the running for that second overall too. Michkov there. And again, he's like a Ovechkin. This is like Ovechkin Crosby draft if they were drafted in the same draft. So, and he's just so good. And you look at what he's done in international play. Anytime he's there, he's dominant. And he's one of probably the best Russians at his age right now. And he's just amazing. Like, he's not the fastest guy, but he's just so good in so many areas and so dangerous and wherever he gets around the net. And if you're a team that's in that that could potentially pick in that top five, you're going to get a super good goal scorer at any point in this five. So even beyond that, as we'll talk, I'm sure, well, of course, we'll talk a lot about it throughout the next season. So number three is Michkov for me. Brandon Yager before, again, a little bit different for Dvorsky. Like, these are all pretty much the same. I'm just moving kind of a little around.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, very early look. I've just looked a little bit at these guys. I haven't really looked deep into their games, but just on the surface, these guys are just so good. Yager's for 4, and then I've got Matthew Wood at 5 for me. And I've not just because he's a Matthew, I don't look for these guys. This guy's so good. I mean, what he did for the Victoria, I believe it's Victoria Grizzlies. Victoria Grizzlies in the BCHL, 45 goals and 85 points in 46 games. And you watch his game, he's just so good. You just watch the highlights that he's got. And some of the places that have early rankings have him in like 10 or beyond, but I think he's going to be into that top 5 again, very early. There's a lot of guys going to be in here, but I'm going Matthew Wood right now as being the 5th overall in my rankings, which again, this is a super early, so don't kind of quote me on these guys right now, but just early on, I think he's just going to be he's going to be high in my rankings unless things change, but I don't see that happening. I think he's just going to keep improving. So Wood at 5 for me. Okay, so that's the top 5. I mean, there's so many other guys. Let's talk about a couple guys that we have a look on. It doesn't have to be this first round. It could be a little later on. So Peter, who else do you have? Have tabs on going into next season for the 2022 draft?
Yeah, 2. I mentioned them before because it was that tie between Yager and Leo Carlson. Carlson is one name to keep an eye on. He had a busy 21-22 season where he was playing at the J18 level, 3 points in 2 games, made the jump to the J20, 27-14, and got a lot of time, 35 games with Orebro in the SHL. Now, obviously, when you're at the pro level and you're only 17 years old, you have 9 points in 35 games. I think, despite the fact that you're not getting top line minutes, I think that is a really, really great sign for your development and that you are adapting very quickly to that pro level. He's got a heavy shot, great offensive awareness, great speed, likes to cut to the inside, great edges. I think he's going to be a very strong offensive dynamo in his second season with Orebro. I honestly think that he's going to put up, I mean, obviously you can't tell with younger players like this, but I think he's going to have a very great standout draft year. Another one for me, obviously Edward Saleh is one to keep an eye on. I have him maybe just outside of that top 10, could obviously crack it. We saw how well he played with Yuri Kulich, setting him up as the playmaker for Czechia in the U18s, but also Lucas Dragicevic. Very mobile, excellent size, and plays with a bit of an edge, has that offensive game, the playmaking abilities, 26 assists, 32 points with the Tri-City Americans. Added another 3 points for Canada at the U18s. And again, talked about how Bedard and Fantilli looked great in that tournament, how other names stood out. I really liked Dragicevic's game. It was very underrated, very calm, very composed, played exceptionally well. He's a name that's probably going to be, I would think, a top 15, but then again, anything can happen because this is a very deep draft. I think no matter who you have, it's going to be all over the place. But I really like what I saw early on from Dragicevic in his season with the WHL and with Team Canada. So definitely going to be keeping a lot of tabs on him as I like his game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're both great picks. Again, this is such a deep class. You can pick a whole bunch of guys that you're going to want to take a look at because there's so much skill in this first round, second round, and beyond. So for me, I've got Zach Benson, who we do our WHL
Winnipeg
centric.
Ice, Zach Benson.
Yes, Winnipeg Ice. He is from Winnipeg. Of course, they had Matt Savoy this year. They had Connor Geekie. They just got so much talent, and they have Zach Benson too, who actually interviewed him on Western Centric on podcast I do with Colton outside of the Hockey Writers. We used to do it here, but and he's just so good, and he's such a great personable guy too to talk to, and he's going to be a heck of an NHL player. And there's rankings that have him in the top 5, top 10. He's going to be a really good player in the NHL at one point. Had a great season with the Winnipeg Ice, really good in the playoffs at 16 years old. I mean, great on the power play. But I mean, he lacks size, but who cares? I mean, he's such a great skater. I mean, it doesn't really matter. And like I say, undersized it's such a thing that, well, of course, we've talked about many times about being undersized doesn't really matter anymore. He's just so, you look at guys that they're so elusive and they just such a great skater, and no one can catch them or hit them. So whatever, if they're small. But yeah, he's going to be so good. So Zach Benson from Winnipeg Ice, and keep an eye on him this coming season. Cause again, you're going to have Matt Savoy, Connor Geekie on the team again. I'm sure. I don't think they're going to be making the NHL. So they're going to have a really good team again. And he's going to be a big part of that in his draft year for sure. Another guy I've got an eye on, and this is mostly because, again, undersized, and he put up a ton of good numbers. I don't know where he's going to be in the rankings, but when you look at stats like this, you've got to kind of look at him. So this is William Whitelaw, and he's from Shattuck St. Mary's, who has a very good track record for bringing NHLers along. 46 goals and 110 points in 55 games at that level. Again, it's a high school level, so maybe the number's a little inflated, but he's 5'8", he's smaller. He's got a ton of skill, a ton of compete. And he's one guy I kind of look at, kind of caught my eye because, his numbers, first of all, and then just looking at some of his other things, what's out there already, looks pretty interesting for me. But at his size, I mean, he probably won't play center. He's rated as a centerman right now. But, you never know. So we'll see how Whitelaw does coming in Youngstown Phantoms, which he did play a bit this season in, but he'll probably go full time in the USHL next season to see what he can do at that level in a full-time role, because I'm really intrigued by him, not just because like he's fine. Yeah, well, he's smaller, but I love how these guys play. He had 2 goals in 9 games with Youngstown last year, under 17s international level, 11 points in 4 games. So with the different tournaments there, he's committed to the University of Wisconsin in 2023-24. So he's going to the NCAA route as well. So I keep an eye on this guy. He's again, interesting name as well. So that kind of goes hand in hand too.
I think that's going to be our quote for the 2023 draft. He's going to be very interesting.
It's going to be very interesting. We're going to have everyone interesting to watch. So there's just 4 guys that to keep an eye on, which, I mean, like I say, this is such a deep draft. So we'll see where all these kind of end up. And of course, have our rankings, which is going to make it going to be tougher to do this season.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have, it's like, okay, he can go 5. Well, he can go maybe 10, or maybe, you know, it's going to be interesting to see where each guy kind of slots in. And because even a 2nd round pick is like a 1st rounder this year.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move into some discussion about Connor Bedard. I mean, we love this guy. Let's do a prediction and say, what type of point totals is he going to put in a draft year? I mean, he did this in his draft minus 1 year. He had a ridiculous season and almost won the scoring title at the end, put on a big push for it. Peter, what do you think he does in his draft year? Again, was a guy that was brought in on an exception. You know, what is it called?
Exceptional status.
Exceptional status. He was put in and he had a ridiculous season. So what is he going to do in his draft year?
So he had 1.61 points per game this season. And that alone is impressive. 100 point season, 62 games. If you were to do that in a normal 68 game season, which is where, you know, all the junior levels play 68 games, that number came out to 109.6. So round up 110. I think he's going to put up in between 115 and 120. I honestly think that he's going to go on he's going to be on a whole other level this season. He's going on an absolute tear, just like he did down the stretch. And, you know, obviously the Regina Pats weren't really a strong team. This season, I believe when I was looking at the numbers in the splits, he was just under or close to a point per game, and he finished the season with 100 points.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know about how quick and how exceptional this player is and how he's able to just turn on the jets, produce at an incredible rate at any given level. And even so, Canada wasn't great, and he still scored 6 goals for them at the U18. So this is a guy that'll take a team and carry it. And his shoulders must be very sore from doing that with the Pats, with Team Canada. And, you know, hopefully down the line, he's going to get some help on a really great team, because he deserves to be a leader and go into battle with a bunch of other players that'll help support him in that process, because he's going to be doing it all. And we don't know if he's going to hit 100 points overall in the NHL. It's very possible that he will, but, you know, that's years away. I think he's going to have a dominant draft year with 115, 120, max 122 points.
Yeah. When you look at what he did in his draft minus 1 year, I mean, that was just insane. And then you look at what he could do potentially. We'll ask the question in a sec, but if he's on a better team, potentially. Yeah. But I think he's probably going to hit that. I'm going to be a little bold and say he's going to hit 150. And that's insane.
Bold. Yeah.
But I think he's a player that can do that. And mostly because what I'll say in the next segment, most likely why. But he's just so elite. And you watch his game, like you say, any level he's been at, he's dominated. And you know, he's at a young age at Team Canada, he's putting up points. He's in the World Juniors, and I'm pretty sure he will be in the World Juniors this August, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he'll be there. He'll also be in the 2023 one.
I'd be shocked if he wasn't, though.
Later, yeah. I'd be shocked if he wasn't on that team. You know, he was named to it in December, so I'm sure he's going to be there. And then you got in the 2023 draft, which would be a little bit 2023 tournament, which he'll be a little older. And, possibly on a tear in the WHL. Who knows? It's going into that. So it's going to be fun to watch him at the World Juniors here in the next two in quick succession. So watch. I think he's going to hit around that. He's just such an amazing talent, and just watch him play. I mean, it's a treat to watch him play the game. So
I just want to ask, 150 just in WHL or 150 combined juniors, tournaments, everything like that?
Maybe I'll be a less bold and say that.
Okay. That because I'm not gonna lie, if it's 150 points in one, season, not even Connor McDavid did that.
Okay, so, then I'll be less.
So that'll be really impressive if he does that. Hey, I would love to see that no matter what.
Yeah. We'll see how that all plays out, but let's get to the next question though. And this is why I think this, where is he going to play? I mean, he is with the Regina Pats. Not a very good team. It'll all depend on this. We talked about this on Western Centric, and Colton and I were talking about, do the Regina Pats go crazy and try to load up and build around this guy in this season and when he's here, because he's only going to be probably in the WHL for one season more, then he'll be in the NHL. I'm sure that's probably what's going to happen when he's drafted. Depends on the team he goes to, but he probably won't very limited time in the WHL and with the Regina Pats. So you either build around him or you move him for a big haul of whatever picks, prospects, things like that to another team, to a contender. So we're both Colton and I were looking at the Kamloops Blazers as being a target. The Blazers targeting him to get him on the team. And you know what type of team they already have with, Stankoven, guys like that. So, Peter, what do you think? Do you think the Regina Pats go and try to build around this guy and try to win with him? Or does he get moved to another team?
It kind of reminds me of the situation with John Tavares when he was with the Generals, and then he got traded to, I believe it was during the London Knights, and this was after or during the World Juniors. And obviously you want him to succeed. I mean, you don't want to see him on a bottom feeder team and put up 120, 150 points and, have it all for nothing if you're not going to go anywhere. Right. It would make sense to try and move him. And you mentioned the Kamloops Blazers. I wonder if maybe the Everett Silvertips 45 wins this season. They were tops in the Western Conference. Obviously, Winnipeg Ice, Edmonton Oil Kings, those teams are going to be elite, possibly heading in the next season because you know what they got. Again, some players going to be out on the move depending on what happens with some of their drafted prospects, but those are names that you should probably keep an eye on, especially if he wants to contend, if he wants to go somewhere to win right now. Maybe not happening at the beginning of the season, could happen later on, maybe post World Juniors or before. I can't remember when the deadline is for, WHL trades, but whenever the deadline is, I would hope to see him move because he deserves an opportunity to win. Just as simple as that. And if they do get one done before the start of the season, then yeah, I agree. Then your point prediction then could possibly happen if he's going to be on a really stellar team.
Yeah, like imagine him with guys like Matt Savoy, Zach Benson, Connor Geekie. I mean, geez. Or like even with the Blazers with Stankoven and guys like that. And
yeah,
they don't have Toporowski, who was really good there, but he's moved on. But they got some good pieces still in Kamloops, and they're going to be loading up, I'm sure, because they have the Memorial Cup next year too. And you always want to be a really good team. But at the same time, you look at what the Sea Dogs did, and they won, and they didn't, they didn't win the championship. So
exactly.
But I'm sure they want to have a really good team going in. So I would say there's going to make some moves. Bedard being added to any of those teams, like you say, Everett's going to want to kind of bounce back after being eliminated in the first round in the playoffs too. So they're going to want to be better. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting storyline to follow because I think Bedard could potentially be moved. Same thing. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, and we'll see if the Regina Pats just decide we're going to try to load up around him and get some guys. So that could also be a possibility as well. So we will see what happens. That's going to be interesting. Okay, let's talk about teams that could potentially have the exclusive rights to draft Connor Bedard. There's a few team names that are already on my mind here. But Peter, who do you have as being like the top, let's say top 3 teams that could potentially be in that running for that first overall pick?
Yeah, you're already seeing it with the Chicago Blackhawks. They're already, basically in full on tank mode right now. Yeah. I mean, you see what the Maple Leafs did with the contract with Peter Mrazek to try it off of that. To have that Mrazek, and I can't remember who their backup is, but the name is slipping me right now. But to have Peter Mrazek as your starter, given the season that he had last season and how much of a decline he's had, not great. But even overall, the Chicago Blackhawks are in a retooling phase as well. Yeah. I mean, we saw how poor they were as a team last season. I think they're going to be in the running. Arizona Coyotes, they're obviously I wouldn't say much better spot, but they're still in a rebuilding phase. Yeah. And I'm going to throw in the Philadelphia Flyers. Mm-hmm. Just absolutely went downhill last season, and not many improvements to the roster this season. I don't know if this is going to be a positive season or for Flyers fans to look forward to. But if you are looking forward to something, look forward to the NHL draft, because I think that they have a chance of being and given how competitive the Metro is right now, I don't think the Flyers have a chance at all. And I'd even throw in the New York Islanders as well, as maybe not a team to win the lottery, but I think they're going to be getting a top 10 pick.
Yeah, those are all teams that kind of have Blackhawks are my number 1 there, and they haven't done much to they've gotten rid of a lot of guys. Yeah. They basically traded their entire
and especially really good, Alex DeBrincat too. That trade alone signaled everything.
Yeah, and then there's talk that they're going to trade Pat Kane. That's been kind of bandied about. They've talked about Taves. Sounds like both of them aren't happy with the way the team is moving right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if both of them are moved at some point, and that would even make it even more of a chance.
Alex Stalock is their backup. There we go.
Yeah. So not a very good tandem. So, and Mrazek, he was really good in Carolina, but they had a really good defense in front of them. So their defense isn't the best in Chicago. So Philly, definitely for me as well. Arizona. I don't want to say Montreal's not going to be there. I think they're going to be a much better team this coming season with a lot of people could say they could be in there too, but I feel they're just be so much better with San Luis behind the bench. They've got some good young guys that are going to be Slavkovsky could actually be playing next year. Slavkovsky could be there as well. So, I mean, I think the team's going to be much better overall. They got some good goaltending. I think they're pretty good. So, there's just so many other teams that are going to be worse. But you look at Metro, like I said, the Metro, and you look at teams, or even in the East in general, you look at teams like the Detroit Red Wings, got better. They would potentially be in that realm, but they're not. I think they're just going to be a much better team with all the signings they made and the additions. Ottawa Senators, same thing. They're not going to be the traditional bottom feeder that a lot of people, have thought of them in the last few years. They've got some really good players to DeBrincat, Giroux. I don't feel that they're going to be a bad team. They got Cam Talbot, who's a really good goaltender. If their defense holds up, I think they're a pretty good team. So you look at the teams that are usually in that realm of being bad, they're not there. So those teams I think could definitely, but you never know. I mean, you got teams that just tank, and like Montreal, who would have thought they would have had the first overall pick when they went to the Stanley Cup final last year. So exactly. You could see some interesting teams dropping down there.
And even the San Jose Sharks too, after they traded away Brent Burns. I think they're headed for, I mean, obviously they already drafted William Eklund, but getting rid of Burns' contract, still have Erik Karlsson on hand, but then again, didn't quite look very appealing last season with the whole entire team structure still going through that rebuild as well. Or tinkering every now and then. So if your top 2 forwards are just going to be Thomas Hertl, Logan Couture, or top 3, Timo Meier as well as your top 3, and you don't have quite a whole lot of depth behind them as well. It's probably going to be another rough season.
Yeah. Well, I say there's going to be some teams dropping off. I think Calgary's going to take a huge dive down in the standings. I don't think they're going to be in the realm of being a first overall pick, but losing Gaudreau is massive.
They're going to be mid-tier.
They're going to be mid-tier this season, and who knows what's going to happen with Tkachuk. I mean, yeah, it's a tough to be a Calgary Flames fan right now, losing Gaudreau and not having anyone that's going to replace him at this point. I mean, there's no one really out there that you can in free agency, at least. Trades, maybe, but that's a whole different discussion. We're on prospects here, not NHL talk, but it's going to be interesting to see what teams are in that realm of that top 5. But again, let's end the show with this question: how valuable are 2023 first round picks going to be this coming season? I mean, we see first rounders get traded throughout the season. We saw that with Brandon Hagel, who one of those picks already gone. Chicago traded that, or not Chicago, Tampa Bay traded that to Chicago. So they're not going to have a 2023 first rounder unless they do something to get it back. Do you think you are going to see many trades with that 2023 first rounder, unless it's like a big blockbuster trade?
If you're a top 10, 15, or if you're a top 10 team that's going to be, lower in the standings and you want to try to accumulate as many picks as possible, absolutely you want to try and get them. But if you're a playoff team going for a Stanley Cup or whatever, and you need to pay that price, obviously you're going to pay that price, because if it pays off, it's going to pay off well. But even if you are a playoff team, I mean, this is a very, very deep draft, and maybe you would like to hang on to it, but unless there's a deal where you absolutely have to give it up and it's going to benefit you in the long run for a deep playoff run or Stanley Cup, why not? Why not give it up? But if you know for sure, like if you're a, maybe less than top 20 team and you want to try and get a second one from one of those teams, then it's going to work. It's going to work in your advantage as well. But then again, Stanley Cup, we saw with Colorado, it doesn't matter how many picks you have in the end. If you win the cup, who cares?
Yeah.
So I would say that teams that are going to be at the bottom of the standings want to accrue as many picks as possible, but top teams, you would like to hang on to them because of how many great players are here. But if you got to trade it, you got to trade it, especially if it's going to impact you greatly.
I think the one thing about these, though, they're going to be worth more. I think in that if you're trading a 2023 first rounder, it's like you're trading 2 of ones from this year.
I agree.
Because of how strong this draft class, it's worth more. I think the currency of it, like the value of it, is going to be higher. And I think they may be traded, but it's going to be like, well, we want this. And
the return is going to be better.
Return's going to be bigger for just the first round pick. I mean, without anything involved extra. So it's going to be interesting to see what teams think at the deadline. Like you said, if there's a team that's like, maybe, we may make the playoffs with this move, I say don't do it because, you don't want to be out and just have 2 points out of the playoffs. You traded that first round pick and now you don't have it and you didn't make the playoffs. So that would be horrible because you don't get a good player and you also didn't make the playoffs at the same time. So that wouldn't be the best way of doing things. So that's going to be interesting to see at that point at the trade deadline to see where all this kind of goes. Okay, that was fun to talk about the 2023 draft so early on. Maybe not really that early. We're again less than a year away. If the draft is around, I don't know if they've released the dates of the draft for next year. Don't think they have. Yeah. But it'll probably go back to our normal 20 to 23. I think usually is that round in June. And because the Stanley Cup final will be around the correct time as normal in that mid-June time. So we'll have our draft at the end of June rather than second week of July or whatever it is. So we are less than a year away. So we're going to have to start doing some stuff already as the season starts going. We're getting some early rankings out. That'll be coming. Early top, I don't know, Peter, what do you got? Early top 15?
Top 10, top 15, depending on how I feel.
So look out for that. We'll have some early rankings out at the Hockey Writers, and it's never too early to look towards that fun 2023 draft. I had a lot of fun in the 2022 one. You know, I want to give props to all our writers at the Hockey Writers for doing all those profiles, because they're amazing. We had over 180. Again, thanks to everyone who read them and you know, and followed us at the draft, because we really appreciate it at the site here, and for following all the prospect profiles, all the draft tracker, and the show for sure. Of course, we really appreciate all the views and all the comments on the videos. So thanks so much. And we'll of course be back throughout the regular. I mean, we may take some breaks throughout the off season here, but we'll be back strong at the beginning of next season, going weekly with all of our great stuff, and some great stuff planned coming up too. So thanks, Peter, for joining, and we'll have Devin back on the next episode, and we'll have some fun back with our full complement of panelists here. So thanks, Peter. And of course, check out our Morning Skate newsletter. That, of course, is going throughout the off season. It goes down to, I believe, 2 or 3 days a week. It doesn't go our full 5, but definitely check that newsletter whenever it comes to your inbox, because it's a great way to start your day with your coffee and all that stuff. So thanks, Peter. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and we will see you next time on the Prospect Corner.